Let's talk about life. Let you guys get to know me a little bit. I went to high school near my home for about half of a semester. Decided it wasn't for me. So I asked my mom, let's go back to homeschooling and get this done fast. That was my thought at the time. And she found a dual enrollment program at a college for me. Did both my high school and I got a lot of my college credits done at the same time. And at the time I knew I wanted to go to school to be a nurse. So I made sure that the classes that I took when I went to college were the classes required for that. So I got into nursing school when I was about 17 years old. I was in nursing school. I was the youngest one in my program, which was a good thing and a bad thing because I got ahead. But at the same time, I was a kid going to school with adults, and it was it was a lot. I stuck with it, and I graduated 2 years later. Found out really fast, some nurses are absolute bitches, okay, especially to each other. So it was like high school all over again, all the drama and everything that was in high school. And it wasn't just towards me. They were also being like assholes to like patients and like talking behind their backs, being very judgmental. It was so irritating to me. But like working in oncology where like you literally have people that are dying and they're going through like some of the most difficult times of their life, it really got to me. Like the whole reason why I became a nurse in the first place was because I've had a lot of personal loss in my life of many family members and friends. And my whole purpose was like, I wanted to make a difference. So as I worked there over time, I got more and more irritated because I was just like, the way you treat people matters, And it's not just a game like of who could say the most hurtful things and like, let's be unkind to each other because it's so petty and pointless. Have better purpose, care about people. It's kind of like the whole point of life. Around this time, I was dating a guy that I met when I was in high school. I met him at church. He was with me all through like college and everything. All of this like super stressful time in my life. We were engaged and everything, and there came a time where he didn't have a place to live. And because we had been dating for so long, my parents were like, you can come live with us for a little while. They knew that we were getting serious and this was the guy I wanted to marry. So they supported him, let him live with us, and then we planned on getting our first apartment together. And we signed a 6-month lease and lived together for a while when I got my first job. And then 6 months later, when our lease expired, we moved a little bit closer to my parents because it was just driving me nuts to be so far away. We weren't seeing each other as often anymore because we were both working so much. And where I was working, it was a very long commute every single day. But then when we started having time to spend together, he was just like, I want to go spend time with my friends and, I don't want to spend time with you. And of course I was just like going through a hard time and it was like I needed him to be there for me. So I got a little bit more and more witchy, like, you're going to spend time with your friends? Whenever like we never get to see each other because we're both working so much. And then I was also dealing with all the shit that I was dealing with at work. His car broke down and everything, and then there was more stress. We had like a garage like under our apartment, and so we just kind of like stored his broken down car there until we could like fix it. My parents are very, very giving people. They wanted him to be able to get back and forth to work, so they got him just like a very cheap car, but it went from point A to point B, but it needed a little bit of work, just like we needed a weekend to work on it before it was like drivable. We had specifically told this guy not to drive this car yet until we had a chance to work on it. Instead of like communicating to me that like, hey, I need to pick my mom up from the airport, he kind of just like took the car and drove it like a long distance to go pick her up from the airport. I'm pissed, okay? And it's late and I'm pretty sure I had like work or something the next day. I go to bed. I'm just like, he's still out. He hasn't come home yet. We had talked on the phone because, it was communicated that he had, taken that car. So I just go to bed and I'm like not welcoming or whatever when his mom came to visit because I had to go to bed anyways. Like I had work. I guess maybe he was mad at me because I went to bed when he was still out with his mom. And when they like came home, it's like I didn't like say anything. From what I remember, this was like many years ago though, but I don't think I said anything. I just went to bed. All I remember is we got to the point where his mom was pissed off for me treating him a certain way, because she knew we were in an argument, but I'm sure he made it sound like it was all me just being mean to him. I knew she was upset, and so I went to talk to her because I thought she was like a super, super nice person. I don't remember what happened, but I know his mom ended up being very upset because I was being so abusive to her son. And then she just kind of goes into this whole spiel of, we just call it his butterfly land, you know, when he's just like, you know, being careless and carefree, we just call it his butterfly land. And my response to her, and I think this is where I started realizing that this is just like really not okay. We're adults and we need to be responsible and have respect for other people. I was just like, I'm not okay with butterfly land. Like I'm okay with like let's live our lives and everything, you know. It's not like I'm trying to restrict him from living his life, but like her referring to butterfly land was her referring to him driving the car, you know, and coming home at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and how that was just okay because he was just in butterfly land. Because I was explaining to her, I was like, the car wasn't supposed to be driven, and it's not like we wouldn't have helped him, you know, pick you up. It wasn't like an impossible situation, kind of shitty, you know, that was like very unfair. And, you know, it's like I've forgiven him for it. You know, it's like we weren't holding on to it or anything. I was just like, this was upsetting, you know. I'm not okay with butterfly land. I'm like, I love your son, you know, and I just, you know, I just miss putting it in the container and smeared it all the way up my hand. I like prepared and everything, like try to make a space for her. I got like food and everything, you know, wanted to feed them, and like really I wanted it to be a special time because he hadn't seen his mom in a long time, and I wanted it to be special for him, and this visit was important to me. She just like took off, like left the apartment, and just like I went after her and I walked with her and we sat down on a curb and had this whole conversation. I don't know what he said to her to make me into such a bad guy, because like it really wasn't that big of a deal. Like I think I was pretty nice for like what he did. But all I know is that after that visit ended, which seemed to end very nicely, we all had a good time, spent time together, he just, you know, got more and more distant from that point. I was just like, okay, you know, like what's going on? And I tried to talk about it with him. Like, let's fix these things. You know, obviously, you know, we both need to work on things, you know. I said, if, you know, like I was desperate at that point too, because I really loved him, you know. And I was like, you know, I was very mean and I can work on that. You know, I was very hurt by what you did and maybe I didn't respond the best way. And so that's kind of the road we went down. Because I was making a little bit more money than him at the time, I was just like, do you like want to go to school? I can help you pay for classes so that you can go back to college, get a degree in whatever you want to do. And I was like throwing out ideas. Do you want to be an electrician? Do you want to maybe go into business and open up your own pet store someday, because it seems like that's what you're passionate about, you know? And I paid for the classes, which I was just like, it didn't matter because he was my family, you know? He like failed all of the classes that I paid for. He put like zero effort in. It was just like video game time. And I love video games. I've always loved video games, but it's just like, it was another one of those things. And it wasn't like they were hard classes. They were like the entry level classes. He just didn't put in the effort. He could have done good on those classes. And then he turned it around later. Like I was trying to force him to be a different person than he wanted to be. Even though I said, I'll pay for these classes so you can go do whatever you want to do. Me offering that to him was, I was trying to change him. Keep in mind too, like I said, it didn't matter to me that he didn't make as much money, but I was paying like 80% of the rent and paying for all the food and utilities. And then at that point, he just wanted to be friends and go out and have other relationships and live together while I paid 80% of rent. So my response to that was, hell no. No. Like at that point, it started understanding how much I was being used. And so I gave him back the engagement ring, even though he bought me the engagement ring and was making payments on it. And then I found out that he wasn't making payments, and in order to get that engagement ring, he couldn't afford it. He used my credit because he didn't have good credit. And I was like, okay, you want to get me an engagement ring. You're making them payments. I don't care. And then I found out after he gave me the engagement ring that he wasn't making payments on it and it was on my credit. So it was making my credit look bad. So I made the payments on it. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay not to have money because I understand how it's been to like struggle, you know, because I've been through many times in my life where money's been really, really tight. I'm like, it's okay, you know, we're family, you know, family helps each other out, you know. I was really going through it like emotionally, like, because I was alone and like this guy that I was with suddenly didn't want me anymore. And he just wanted to be my friend and continue using me. And that's when it like clicked. Like, he doesn't actually care about you like you care about him. Realize that maybe it was just like in all my imagination that like him caring about me, because I was like constantly going out of my way to take care of him because I cared about him. Let me go get myself ready to go out on the walk and we'll finish this conversation while I'm out on the walk. But I had a talk with my parents and I'm not with this guy anymore. It's been years. So I'll tell you how it all played out after I told my parents and what their opinions on how he was treating me and what their response was. So, because we're like a tight-knit family, we're like all there for each other all the time. So yeah, I'll tell you. Okay. Look at our house in the background, guys. We're getting ready to walk up and down the street. I love it when it has the Christmas lights. Anyways, back to story time. So I tell my parents, and that's where it became even more obvious, because my parents were like, what the hell? We didn't raise you to let a man treat you this way. You need to stick with this. You need to not let your heart just, lead you down a path where you're going to end up being more hurt. You need to get out of this relationship because it's not healthy. It's abusive. Yes, I was being mean in the relationship. I had times where I was being witchy, but there was a reason for that. And it wasn't always justified. It's not justified to be mean to people, and things can be handled in better ways. But don't let a man make you feel like you're just being a bitch because he's being an asshole and you're responding to that. Wasn't about to basically pay to let this guy live with me and use me and go out and date other people. And, I wasn't about to let that happen. I was like, oh, hell no. This is a whole nother level. Like, how can you be like, let's break up? But you know what? I really like all the benefits of being with you, like having a place to stay and not having to pay for that, and being able to go out and have fun and have you cook me dinner. And, I can just see that in the future. Let me bring my girlfriend home, to see my caregiver and the person who pays for my home. No. So, remember how the car was broken down in the garage and everything? That thing wouldn't move because, I think the axle was like broken. It was like a transmission, like axle problem. So it wasn't like you could even roll it. He was just under the impression that like I was stuck and that I wasn't going to be able to just like, because our lease hadn't ended and we would have to pay to get out of that. And so he thought he would just have a free ride from that point. The car was in the garage. It wasn't mobile. And my family was like, oh, hell no. Like, this is on principle at this point. I'm not a huge go out and party with people kind of person. I'm more of a homebody. And I keep my, closest people. Those are the people I want to spend time with. Well, all those people showed up for me. All of them. My brother, his friends, his girlfriend, who's my best friend, my parents, everybody showed up. This guy was away at work. And the whole plan was, let's move out. Let's move out completely before he's off of work and there could be any more stressful shit. He's just at this point thinking that he's going to come home and everything's going to be hunky-dory and he's going to be able to continue on acting shitty like he was acting and using me and getting what he wants, because at that point, that's all I had ever given him. I let him treat me however, and he got away with it. even though emotionally I wasn't ready for it, I kind of just started going through the motions, packed everything up. My dad and my brother came to get his car out of the garage. They got a couple of jacks. They jacked up the car and rolled the car out of my garage on top of the jacks. Like, the car didn't roll out on the wheels. They like drug it with the jacks, and then they put it in a parking spot at the complex. I went down to the leasing office. I had a friend at that time who I was helping take care of his wife because she was sick, and he was well endowed, and he knew I was somebody who's always kept my word. Well endowed? Oh, does it mean that? My husband's over here telling me well endowed.
Well off.
Well off, okay. Financially well off, not well endowed, but I mean, maybe. I'm sure, because we always had really, I mean, he was like my dad's age, okay? But he was like my friends, and I've always been friends with, like, I don't know why, but like, since I was a little girl, like, I'm like, my best friends are like old men. Because they're like I've always been like a fisher girl. Like, I like to go fishing and stuff, and like, it was always like old grandpas or old dads and stuff that you would meet when you'd go out and go fishing and stuff. So a lot of my friends are like old men. And at that time, and me and this guy who was taking care of his wife, we had a really good relationship where we would have like, where we would joke all day long and everything. But he trusted me, and I told him what was going on, and he's like, I'm gonna lend you all of that money to get out of your lease, and you pay me back when you can. Don't worry about it now. And my parents were basically like, we don't want you living on your own. Because I was like, I told them, I was like, I might just continue living on my own and kicking out. And they're like, no, come home, live with us, let us be there for you. So this friend that I was helping him lent me all the money. So I went down to the leasing office. I told them what was happening. The lease was under my name because I was taking care of him. And so I paid to get out of the lease, and I moved out that day. And because I'm a bitch, he probably doesn't even know this, I told him where his car was parked and the license plate number and everything, and I said it was broken down. And I put all of his shit in his car, including his bike, which I don't know how, but we got that bike and crammed it into the broken down car. And then I told them where his car was, and I said, he no longer lives here. His car's parked in the parking lot. Just come have it towed with all of his shit in it. So it was a little bit of like, yeah, total bitch move, but it was at the same time like, especially if he's watching this, it was completely an intentional fuck you. So for all of the years of abuse, you know, because I knew that he didn't have money to go get his shit out of impound. It was about principle, about using somebody, and that's not okay, you know, when you don't have any good intentions for the person, you know. It was about taking advantage. Not only that, but on top of all that, it was the constant lying. I get that people lie because they're afraid of repercussions and what people's responses are. But it's like one of those buck up, buttercup things, you know, like, are you so much of a coward that you can't tell the truth? I got so sick of that in our relationship, and I feel like a majority of the arguments, even though he did something that was hurtful, it would have been so easily forgiven, except I felt like I had to constantly weed through like what was the truth and what was a lie, because the things that were lied about was like almost like, you know, those people that are like sociopaths and they like can't tell the truth, and it's like they believe their own lies and they tell like these extravagant stories, you know, just to not tell the truth. It was all those times where I was catching him in these lies, and we'd get into these arguments, and then eventually it was just like, after the whole, you know, let's just be friends thing, and then moving all of his stuff out and then taking my dog and moving back in with my parents. And no, it wasn't his dog. We had a dog together that was given to me by one of my closest friends that I went to nursing school with. You want to know what the topper was of this whole thing? Of when his mom was coming to visit, when we got into that, argument right after. You remember how I said that things changed like a month or two after? I had a very close family member at that time die. And it was very, very, very difficult. I told him way ahead of time, I was like, can you please, come with me to the funeral? Like, I don't want to go by myself. Like, this is going to be really hard. Can you just come and be with me? Of course, he didn't come with me. He just couldn't, make time. There was not really anything else going on in life. It was just a choice. This was the same day. Okay, we're driving home from the funeral. And I had gone with my parents because, he wasn't going to come with me. So we didn't go, me and him together. So I went with my parents in their car. I wanted my parents to drop me off at his work when I knew he was getting off and I was going to drive home with him. So I go and I text him and we meet up and we go and sit in the car together. And I'm just thinking, we're just going to drive home together, and that is the time that he decided that he wanted to tell me that he didn't want to be in a relationship anymore and he wanted to just be friends. That's when he told me. Right as I was sitting in the car with him on the way home from the funeral that my parents dropped me off because I wanted to be with the person that was my person, and drive home together because I was going through it, This person that was part of my life that died hit me really hard. Like, it was tough. And so I had them drop me off because I wanted comfort, like any normal person would want comfort. And that's when he decided he no longer wanted to be in a relationship. He's like, you look really beautiful. I just want to start off by saying you look so beautiful tonight. And I was just like thinking, oh, great. You think I look beautiful in my black dress coming home from the funeral. I gave him back the ring in the car. And that's where it ended from that point. So that was like a huge part of my life because I was with him from high school. He lived with me and my family in my parents' house. Then we moved into literally 2 separate apartments together, had a dog, we're engaged, had already set a date and booked a venue, for our wedding. And then suddenly, he decides, let's just be friends and you could still take care of me. A few years later, this was after I met my husband and everything. I was snooping online because I was curious. And I saw that he had posted a video about me because he wanted to be this big YouTuber. That's what he wanted to do, which is fine. But he posted a video about me, even though we hadn't really had any conversation, about don't let people change you, be your authentic self and, all of that. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. He posted a video about me. It wasn't very kind, and it's obviously not at all what he said to me when we broke up. So about, I'll always be there for you, you were such a big part of my life and we'll always be friends, and, all that shit that people say when they're breaking up. I was just like, wow, that's really shitty. But then I am seeing that he somehow was living with this girl and was married, and then I was like, oh, let's go down the rabbit hole. So I go and snoop a little bit, and I see the they had an engagement party or something because he was engaged to this girl, and I was just like, okay. Keep in mind, when I'm doing all of this, I'm looking into this stuff. I'm pretty sure at that time I was already married and pregnant with my first child. So I was just sitting at home snooping. I was just like, okay, I'm curious how his life is going. I was a little excited for him that he found somebody and was engaged and everything. But then I go in and I look at the engagement photos. You know how sometimes people are like, they'll put this like little board up at the beginning of their like party of like, we met on this date, we had our first date on this date, and we got engaged on this date. You know, I look at the dates on those photos that were posted and they were overlapping. Okay, overlapping from when we were still together. I wonder if she even knew this, because, you know, he lied about everything in our relationship. But I was just like, oh, well, I guess I made the right decision, because, you know, at that point it was only suspicion that he had maybe been cheating on me. But you don't make the right decisions when your heart is involved and when you're hurt. So that was like even more confirmation. Don't let people change you. I think that was so funny how innocent it came, but it was just like, if people only knew. But this was years and years ago. I could have made a video and sent it back to him immediately and been like, you know, I just didn't care enough, you know. I'd already moved on, you know, with my life, and, you know, it didn't matter to me anymore. My heart was no longer there, you know. It took me a while because I was very in love and very committed. I'm a very loyal person, so it took me a while. And I think that's what made me fall in love with my husband even more, because as it took me a while, he was there for me. He was there for me through all of it, all the stories that I told him of things that happened, and all the tears that I still cried years later because I was just so hurt. So after this happened, I moved back in with my parents. I started dating another guy that I met on like Match.com, you know, and I was getting older and I was like, I wanted to find somebody. My dad's like, try Match.com. Dated this guy. It was not time. I should not have dated him yet, because I was still going through the healing part of the relationship being over. I don't think he was on Match to meet his forever person. It was more of like, he just wanted a hookup type thing. And so we dated for a couple of months. Didn't really spend much time together. And then I was just kind of like, you know, I'm sorry, but I want to be in a relationship with somebody who actually like has plans on creating a future with me. So I'm gonna, you know, go my own way. So this guy that I said that I dated off of Match, that was kind of just looking for hookups and stuff, even though he didn't say that, he was like, I want to find my forever person. And he's like, all these girls that I keep dating, every time we break up, they end up going on and getting married right away, like to the next person they're with. But he was complaining about every single girl that he had been with went on to the next person that they were with, marrying the next person they were with, which is freaking hilarious, because literally the next person I dated, I married too. Which is so funny. But yeah, I'll tell you guys about that in my next. We have plenty of time to talk. We're gonna do Vlogmas every single day, and I'll tell you about that story. That story is pretty great. And yeah, met my husband, and yeah, that was high school, college, nursing, first real love, my first 2 apartments, and all of that drama. I feel like I gave him so much grace with all of the shit that he put me through. And it was just like, it would have been nice, you know, when I was going through some of the hardest things in my life, if he could have done the same for me. So no matter how much you care about somebody, you need to not only think about what's in your heart, but you need to think about what's in their heart. And if they can't do the same for you, give you the same grace and show you the same love, then it's not right. Treat yourself better by not letting somebody hurt you and take advantage of you like that. And if this by any chance has gotten to this person, I forgive you. You were an asshole, but I forgive you. And, you know, I found my happiness. And, you know, as much as you did hurt me, I cared about you. I don't really know you anymore, but I hope you found your happiness. And I hope you love her better than you've ever loved me. And I hope you give her grace that you didn't give me. Be a better person. Because as much as you want to say that I was the asshole, you know what you did. You know who you are. And you know what I did for you and how I cared for you. Be better. So, see you guys tomorrow. Vlogmas Day 1. See you for Vlogmas Day 2. And I'll tell you the story of how I met my husband. And you know what the funny thing is? The amount of times that I've had arguments and I've been bitchy, bitchy. The same way that I was with my ex, because it's not like I'm going to change as a person. When you're in a relationship, a healthy relationship, you guys argue and you work things out. And I've given my husband hell and I've said sorry, and he's given me hell and he said sorry, and we've both made mistakes, but we love each other through everything. And we fight for each other. We don't give up on each other. So, find your person and don't settle for the wrong person. See you guys next time.